I've been around long enough to know that some stories never get told. The kind that vanish before anyone can make sense of them. That's what happened to Daniel Carter. A journalist with a knack for digging too deep. A man like Carter doesn't just disappear without reason. The last thing anyone heard from him was a voicemail to his editor. Just one chilling sentence. They know. It's too late. I knew there had to be more to the story. When I visited Carter's apartment, everything seemed too perfect. No forced entry, no sign of a struggle. His things were neatly arranged, like he'd just stepped out for a coffee and never came back. I've seen a lot of crime scenes, and this one smelled wrong. I dug into Carter's last investigation. A corruption scandal involving city officials and a powerful real estate developer. Big money. Big secrets. Coincidence? Please. I don't believe in those. Then I found him, my witness. A young guy about 21, frail and anxious. His blank stare told me he was blind. He kept fidgeting with a tablet, typing rapidly on the braille keys. I could see he was terrified. I know you were there, I told him. You heard something, or felt something. Whatever it was, it's important. Help me understand. He typed something, then turned the screen toward me. 6 words that hit me like a punch to the gut. I can't speak. They took my voice. Blind and mute. He couldn't see what happened, couldn't scream for help. Yet somehow he knew something. Something dangerous. And that made him a target. I turned to an old contact, a disgraced ex-cop who owed me a favor. He knew the city's underbelly better than most. When I asked about Carter, his face paled. You didn't hear this from me, he muttered. But Carter wasn't just looking into city officials. He was onto something bigger, a network of people who make problems disappear. Permanently. I smiled thinly. Sounds like I just made their list, I said. Lucky me. That's the thing about chasing shadows. Sooner or later, they turn and chase you back. I wasn't about to let that happen. Not without a fight. I grabbed my leather jacket, slipped my gun into its holster, and picked up Carter's case file. Carter's story didn't end the night he disappeared, I muttered to myself. Someone wanted to bury the truth. But they didn't count on me digging it back up. I knew this case wouldn't be simple. Daniel Carter had been digging into powerful people. The kind who don't just ruin lives, they erase them. And now that blind, mute kid was tangled in it too. His name was Ethan. 21, living alone, and surviving in a world that didn't make things easy for him. Whatever Carter uncovered, Ethan had stumbled across part of it, and someone wanted him silenced. The next day, I paid Ethan another visit. His apartment was a wreck, overturned furniture, broken glass, and signs someone had been digging for something. Someone who didn't care if they left a mess behind. Ethan was shaking in the corner, clutching his tablet like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. They came, he typed, his fingers trembling. They're looking for something. What is it? I asked. He typed again. I don't know. But I knew Ethan wasn't telling me everything. He'd heard something, even if he didn't realize it. I asked him to think back to the night Carter disappeared in the park walkway, where they were catching up on his last day in college. What did he hear? Smell? Feel? Anything? After a pause, Ethan typed. Leather. Cologne. Heavy boots. Someone brushed past me, and then Carter was gone. That was something. I pieced it together, a wealthy developer, a corrupt politician, and now signs of muscle hired to clean up their mess. The network my informant warned me about? They weren't just pulling strings behind the scenes. They were tightening the noose on anyone who got too close. There's something else, Ethan typed suddenly. Daniel Carter helped me. I frowned. Helped you how? He used to tutor me sometimes, Ethan typed. I'd visit him whenever I needed help with my college assignments. He never turned me away. Said I reminded him of his younger brother, the one who died. My stomach twisted. Carter was known as a relentless reporter, cold-nosed and dogged. But this was different. He hadn't just been chasing leads, he'd cared. About Ethan, about people. That made this case personal, for both of us. I tracked Carter's last known movements to a closed-down nightclub called the Iron Gate. Word was, shady deals got done in the back rooms, the kind that come with consequences. That night, I waited outside the club. Sure enough, a black SUV rolled in, tinted windows, sleek rims, the kind of car that whispers bad news. 2 men climbed out. One in a leather jacket, reeking of cologne, boots thudding heavy against the pavement. Ethan's memory was sharper than I thought. I tailed them, careful to keep my distance. They slipped into a side entrance. I followed minutes later, creeping through the shadows. Inside, I found a grimy room lit by a flickering bulb, and in the center, Daniel Carter's laptop sat on a table wide open. Whatever Carter had been working on, someone wanted it wiped. Don't move, a voice growled behind me. Cold steel pressed against my back. I don't usually take orders, I shot back. With one sharp elbow strike, I knocked the gun aside and spun around. Leather Jacket lunged for me. I caught his arm, twisted hard, and sent him crashing into a table. His buddy reached for a knife, but I grabbed a bottle from the bar and smashed it across his arm. He staggered back, cursing. By the time I reached Carter's laptop, the screen was flashing. Deleting files. 10% complete. I plugged in a flash drive and hit recover. Just in time. Whatever Carter had found, I had it now. Back at my office, I handed the flash drive to Ethan. This is what Carter risked his life for, I told him. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not. He typed 3 words. I trust you. Smart kid. He'd have to. Because someone out there still wanted him gone. And I wasn't about to let that happen. I knew this wasn't over. Whatever Carter had uncovered was big, bigger than just corruption. People like that don't stop until the loose ends are tied, and right now, Ethan and I were dangling by one of those threads. The next morning, I reviewed Carter's recovered files. Documents, emails, financial records, and then I found it, Project Ironclad. On the surface, it looked like a routine development plan for low-income housing. But digging deeper, I found payouts, huge sums of money funneled to fake companies. Someone had been buying silence. Carter's notes revealed something worse. 3 missing men. All contractors tied to the project. No bodies, no media coverage, they just vanished. Carter had linked them to a powerful figure. Marcus Kane, a ruthless real estate mogul with deep ties to city politics and the judiciary. The same man my informant warned me about. I found Ethan at a nearby shelter. He was pacing, anxious. When I told him what I'd found, his face went pale. You know, Daniel Carter literally saved my life, he typed. How? I asked. I was living on the streets, Ethan typed. No one cared. But Carter, he stopped. First he would buy me food. Later on, he helped me secure my apartment and also helped me get into college. He kept saying I reminded him of his little brother. I swallowed hard. I doubt if the world knew this part of Carter. A heart big enough to see people most of the world ignored. We drove straight to Kane's newest construction site. Inside, the place felt wrong, too quiet. Dust swirled in the air, and the faint smell of bleach clung to the walls. In one of the unfinished rooms, I found it, a storage locker chained shut. The markings matched Carter's notes. Ironclad 3. I pried it open and inside, I found rows of folders, hard drives, and a photo of Ethan. Before I could react, footsteps thundered up the stairs. I barely had time to pull Ethan behind a pile of drywall before Kane's men stormed in. She's here. One of them barked. We need to move, I whispered to Ethan. Now. We crept down a back hallway. But just before we reached the exit, Leather Jacket stepped in front of us, gun drawn. Looks like you didn't learn your lesson, he sneered. I'm a slow learner, I shot back. He lunged and I moved fast, sweeping his legs and disarming him in one motion. But before I could grab the gun, his buddy tackled me from behind, slamming me hard against the wall. My ribs screamed in pain. I twisted free, but Leather Jacket recovered fast. He swung a crowbar at my head. I ducked, but he caught my arm. Pain flared white-hot. Big mistake, I growled. I drove my knee hard into his gut, then elbowed his jaw. He stumbled, but his partner grabbed a metal pipe and swung at me. I dodged left, barely, but he caught my shoulder. Nyla! Ethan's frantic typing sounded like thunder in my ears. He held a fire extinguisher. Hit the trigger, I shouted. White foam blasted across the room, blinding Leather Jacket and his buddy. Wow, Ethan's sense of sounds and smell was uncanny. He knew where they were. I spun low, sweeping both their legs and sending them crashing to the floor. This time, I grabbed the gun and leveled it at them. Stay down, I warned. I grabbed Ethan and bolted outside, locking them in while waiting for the cops to arrive. Later that night, Ethan typed one last message on his tablet. Thank you for saving my life. You saved mine too, I told him. You know something? Carter believed you were worth saving. And he was right. You'll be fine, okay? I've got your back now. The next morning, Marcus Kane was arrested. The files Ethan and I recovered painted him as the mastermind behind the disappearances. But something told me Kane wasn't going down without a fight. Powerful men like him always find cracks in the system. And as for Carter, there was still no sign of him. No body, no witnesses, no answers. Just a faded photo on my desk, Carter standing beside Ethan at some forgotten diner. Carter's smile was small but real. Where are you, Carter? I muttered. The city was quiet that night, but somehow, I knew the silence wouldn't last.